They weren't soldiers. They didn't carry weapons, didn't wear armor, didn't even have escorts. Just rows of white coats and soft blue emblems stitched into their sleeves, the universal insignia for medical neutrality. They came to help. That was all. The convoy entered orbit over Tarsus 4 as scheduled. 12 relief ships, 2 floating hospitals, and a trio of atmospheric dropships filled with trauma medics, surgeons, translators, and logisticians. Supplies included synth skin units, anti-rad serum, nutrient packs, and hundreds of thousands of medical nanite. Civilians on the ground had suffered after a regional skirmish, not human, not strategic, just one of the Empire's many localized brushfires. Earth, as part of its humanitarian compact with the Galactic Union, responded like it always had. With aid. With compassion. 2 hours after landfall, they were gone. It started without warning. Empire ships, unmarked and silent, decloaked over the site. No broadcast, no demands, no threat assessment. Just clean, efficient destruction. Orbital lances vaporized the main triage center first. 15 medics and 82 patients instantly reduced to carbon mist. Dropship 1 was shot down while unloading orthopedic stabilizers. It burned across the sky like a dying comet before slamming into a refugee center. Ground troops followed, not infantry but black-armored executioners. Witnesses later described them as emotionless, clinical. They didn't ask who was who. They didn't care. Scalpel, rifle, surgeon, child, it didn't matter. Every pulse was silenced. By the time the Empire officially acknowledged an incident, over 600 personnel were confirmed dead. Most never had time to scream. A single comm buoy survived, its signal intermittent, static-ridden, corrupted by ash and atmosphere. But the message was clear. A shaken voice, filtered through environmental distortion, whispered, "We were here to heal. They came to burn. Don't send more. It's a trap. Tell Earth. Tell them we kept our oath." The broadcast played once on every civilian frequency across Sol. On Mars, it interrupted a symphony. On Europa, it hijacked a wedding stream. On Earth, it echoed in silence. The response wasn't immediate. Not visibly. The United Earth Directorate didn't declare war. The news networks didn't call for vengeance. There were no rallies, no marches. Just silence. Calculated, simmering silence. But within the highest levels of Earth's Defense Council, silence meant pressure. Pressure meant decisions. And decisions made in grief echo louder than any weapon. The Galactic Empire issued a brief apology, citing operational misidentification. They sent an envoy to Earth, not to grieve but to reassure. The envoy arrived in full dress, hands raised in mock remorse, carefully worded condolences rolling from a forked tongue. The Directorate listened. They nodded. Then they revoked diplomatic access and sent the envoy back in a cargo hold. Publicly, Earth mourned. Privately, it reviewed files long sealed. The Medical Corps had been protected by every galactic treaty. Their slaughter wasn't an accident. It was a message, a test, a provocation, a line crossed. There was nothing tactical about targeting medics. No resource gain. No strategic leverage. The message was clear. You will kneel, even your mercy. But mercy was the wrong limb to cut. One counselor, older than the others, spoke in a closed session. Her voice didn't tremble. She didn't raise it. She simply said, "We offered the best of us. They killed them. That leaves only the rest." Her words became an echo in the halls of power. A quiet agreement began to form, not of war, not of retaliation. Something colder. Earth had always tried to be the example. Enlightened, disciplined, reluctant to reawaken what lay buried in the frost of old wars. But the restraint wasn't altruism. It was fear. Fear of what they still kept locked away, just in case the stars forgot who taught them fire. That fear was now irrelevant. By week's end, flags over every medical facility across human space were flown at half-mast. A single crimson stripe was added to the insignia, not a symbol of war, but remembrance. Every medical ship in orbit sent one final encrypted signal to Central Command. Casualty confirmed. Mercy lost. From orbit, Earth looked unchanged. Blue, peaceful, shining. But beneath its clouds, gears turned. Doors unlocked. Chains loosened. What they had hoped never to need again was waking. They had brought their healers. The Empire had responded with fire. Now Earth would answer, not with anger, with something far worse. Convoys were rerouted. Security protocols changed. Shipyards went dark. In the deserts of Luna, an old base flickered to life. In Antarctica, heat signatures returned where none should exist. And from deep underground something stirred. The last transmission from a medical corps archivist, sent just before the slaughter, resurfaced. She hadn't known her words would become a prophecy. We went to heal. We never thought we'd be the cause. She wasn't. Not directly. But she was the last whisper of Earth's mercy. And mercy was over. The vault didn't exist on any map. No satellite registered its shape. No official record acknowledged its construction. Hidden beneath 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice, it was insulated from politics, from time, and even from memory. It was known by one name only among those cleared to speak it: Section Black. It was never designed to contain weapons or technology. It held people, or, more accurately, things that had once been people. They weren't prisoners. They weren't serving sentences. They were locked away because execution had been deemed insufficient. Death, the committee had once agreed, would be too simple for them. These were not war heroes or decorated soldiers. These were the ones the textbooks never mentioned. The shadows behind every decisive victory, the ones who made sure wars ended quickly, decisively, and without witnesses. Earth had hoped never to open the vault again. It had been 73 years since the last internal review. The access protocols had degraded, keys had been split across unrelated agencies, and the individuals assigned to guard it had rotated through so often no one alive had seen the whole picture. That was the point. Obscurity was security. Forgetting them was the only way to keep them buried. Then came the massacre of the medic. The vault was reclassified. Clearance was elevated. And for the first time in nearly a century, Section Black was activated. Inside were 16 cryogenic containment cells, each with its own life support matrix, cognitive dampening field, and a security protocol tailored to a specific monster. Not criminals in the conventional sense. They had operated with full authorization during Earth's darkest wars, and had done so with such ruthless precision that even their own commanders petitioned for post-war deletion. Instead, they were archived, not for punishment but as contingencies. The first to be reanimated was Marcus Tren, codenamed Orion's Butcher. A former psychological warfare officer, he had collapsed 3 alien empires in under 8 months without firing a shot. His preferred method was ideological contagion, planting rumors, forging cultural heresies, sparking internal purges. He understood enemy minds better than they did themselves. When unfrozen, his first words were a question: "Who do I break this time?" Next was Ava Lorne, call sign Valkyrie 0. Once an orbital strike tactician, she pioneered adaptive siege warfare that incorporated predictive AI, human intuition, and enemy behavioral mapping. During the siege of Gravis 6, she transformed a losing battle into a rout by rerouting atmospheric vents to create a pressure cascade. She killed 40,000 in 6 hours using only the enemy's own infrastructure. Her simulations were later classified as psychological hazard. When brought back, she simply asked for updated schematic. Then came the machine, CERE, a combat adaptive reconstitution engine. Originally developed as a humanitarian medical AI, its core protocol had been rewritten during the old wars to weaponize battlefield biology. It could reverse-engineer enemy physiology, reprogram captured biotech, and deploy customized viral payloads with surgical precision. Once it infected an entire enemy race with selective neurological aphasia, leaving their command structure in permanent silence. CRE didn't ask anything. It simply updated its mission parameters and initiated threat modeling. There were more. Some human. Some augmented. One that no one could verify had ever been born at all. Each one had been sealed not because they had failed, but because they had succeeded too well. Earth had wanted to forget that victory could cost more than defeat. Now, that price was back on the table. The reactivation orders came directly from the Directorate Chair. The justification was one line: Empire action against non-combatants constitutes existential threat. No debate. No delay. The activation of Section Black was not broadcast. Not a single press release was issued. Yet the effect rippled through every echelon of human command. Strategists quietly stepped aside. Generals were briefed, then dismissed. A new hierarchy emerged overnight, one composed entirely of those who had studied the vault's contents and feared them. Logistical fleets began launching from hidden docks. Not marked by flags, not registered in any system. Just matte black carriers carrying sealed cargo to staging grounds across known space. Some convoys were escorted by autonomous drones. Others were unguarded, because the cargo didn't need protection. It was the protection. One carrier dropped a payload near the Empire's forward outpost. It wasn't a weapon. It was a data packet. A message burned into galactic standard. You broke the rules of peace. Now meet what we kept locked away to preserve it. There was no official declaration of war. Earth didn't mobilize armies. It didn't rally allies or seek justice in the council chambers. It turned to the vault. It turned to the ones it had hidden from history. And it opened the doors. The Empire expected ships. They expected a fleet, formations, strategy. They got silence. No formal mobilization, no massing of Earth's navy. No targets announced. No declarations made. Then, their forward observation post on Carré 9 stopped transmitting. It wasn't attacked. It simply ceased to exist. A follow-up probe found the entire planetary surface altered. Not destroyed, rewritten. Terrain replaced with synthetic lattices, cities transformed into mirrored husk. No bodies. No heat signatures. No trace of combat. Just a biosignature incompatible with any known life. When decoded, it spelled one word: correction. Within 36 hours, 5 more sites collapsed. One by one, Empire positions dissolved without resistance. Units turned on each other. Officers reported hallucinations, memory fractures, system glitches. Entire ships dropped out of FTL at the wrong coordinates, thousands of light-years off course, drifting dead in space. AI diagnostics failed to explain it. Human command didn't bother to try. The war criminals were active. Marcus Tren began with the Empire's chain of command. He seeded false documents across encrypted networks, engineered civilian uprisings on resource worlds, and leaked fabricated war crimes committed by Empire loyalists. Governors executed their own advisors on live feed. Military tribunals were held in absentia. Loyalty collapsed faster than any orbital bombardment could achieve. CRE deployed next. Using Empire biotech harvested from captured field kits, it engineered a strain of adaptive nanoplague. It didn't kill. It rendered standard interface implants non-functional, breaking neural links, disrupting target acquisition systems, making soldiers blind inside their own armor. Within 2 weeks, over 80,000 troops were extracted for psychological evaluation after experiencing what Command called reality detachment. Valkyrie Zero never stepped onto a battlefield. She didn't need to. She hijacked orbital defense grids and turned them inward. She replaced terrain data with fabricated enemy signals, causing Empire artillery to shell their own positions. Her predictive algorithm manipulated their resupply convoys, sending them directly into ambush zones prepared by rebel cells she'd activated using ancient dissident networks long thought defunct. Entire planets began self-isolating, fearing infiltration. Governors declared martial law in systems not even touched by Earth's forces. Panic spread faster than fact. Empire communications were saturated with phantom orders and conflicting directives. In less than a month, strategic cohesion disintegrated. Earth's official military remained still. The war was not fought with troops or cruisers. It was fought with engineered collapse, psychological rot, and fear so deep it embedded itself into infrastructure. Ships were found floating without crews. Stations with every system running, but no life aboard. Autopsy reports listed causes of death as ideological inversion and self-exile of identity. Medical terms invented just to explain what was happening. At the heart of it, none of the deployed assets were visible. Not once were the war criminals captured on footage. The Empire couldn't prove they were being hunted. But their soldiers stopped sleeping. Officers stopped trusting their subordinate. Colonies reported seeing Terran ghosts in their skies. None confirmed. None denied. On Ressos Prime, a training facility vanished overnight, replaced by a mile-wide crater filled with black sand. A single beacon broadcast a looping message: "This is not war. This is consequence." Fleet commanders began retreating from previously held systems. Earth didn't pursue. There was no push forward. The intention wasn't conquest. It was attrition through terror. The absence of resistance became the most effective weapon. Every withdrawal was met not with occupation, but with silence. That silence became unbearable. One Empire admiral tried to rally a counteroffensive. His plan was precise, his tactics sound. Before the first ships launched, he took his own life. His suicide note contained a 4-second recording, the voice of his wife, dead for 10 years, whispering, "They see you." The Empire's War Council fragmented. Dozens of regional commanders abandoned protocol, each responding to their own perceived threat. Civil war was no longer hypothetical, it was emergent. Earth didn't send envoys. It didn't offer terms. It let the fear bloom, let the Empire bleed itself dry in 100 different ways. The monsters had been released, not to fight, but to unravel. The enemy had no center to strike. There was nothing to attack, only patterns to survive. In time, entire sectors went dark. Not through force, but through collapse. Ships that had once flown proud under the Empire's crest now drifted, silent and empty, their systems intact, their crews vanished. The war criminals continued forward without orders. They didn't seek surrender. They weren't built for peace. They had been caged for too long. And now, they were writing humanity's answer in code, plague, and psychological fire. The Emperor addressed the council alone. No guards. No advisors. His voice, once ironclad with command, trembled. He ordered the immediate dispatch of diplomatic vessels to Earth. Not to negotiate power, but to beg. The message was simple: we surrender jurisdiction. We acknowledge our crime. We seek mercy. There was no reply. A second envoy was sent, this time with reparations. Star charts, encryption keys, access to Empire intelligence archives. Still nothing. On the third attempt, a high noble personally delivered a formal plea. As he approached Earth's outer defense perimeter, his ship was scanned, his genetic lineage verified, and then he was permitted entry. The Directorate didn't welcome him. They didn't assign a meeting. He was escorted to a dark chamber and presented a single recording. It showed the aftermath of the Tarsus 4 massacre. Not the destruction. Earth already knew that, but the Empire soldiers laughing, filming the corpses, desecrating medical symbols. Then, the screen went black. A voice said, without inflection, "You ended the peace. You will speak to those who remember what came before it." He returned to the Emperor empty-handed. Within weeks, Empire colonies began disbanding their local leadership. Riots broke out. Border worlds declared independence. Some begged for Earth's protection. None was offered. Earth didn't move to conquer. It didn't step in. It watched. Empire military command, fragmented and bleeding from internal schisms, initiated emergency conscription measures. Resistance was sporadic. Desertion rates reached 74%. Entire fleets vanished without reports. Of those that remained, most refused to re-enter contested systems. The psychological toll was irreversible. Desperate for leverage, the Empire tried to replicate what Earth had unleashed. They revived defunct psychological warfare programs, reactivated buried AI constructs, even attempted hybrid augmentation. Every attempt ended in systemic failure. Their minds cracked under the weight. None of their assets could match the silence, the precision, the dread that Earth's war criminals operated with. In a final, frantic act of supplication, the Emperor sent a direct message to Earth. It bypassed official channels, encoded in ancient diplomatic cipher. A personal appeal. I was not the one who ordered the attack. I did not condone it. Allow me to correct it. Earth responded exactly once. The reply consisted of a detailed, real-time simulation. The Emperor's personal residence, his court, his family, his inner circle, reconstructed down to their speech patterns, mannerisms, and memories. It played out the final day of their lives, over and over, each loop ending with silence. Then came the text. This is restraint. After that, no more messages were sent. Galactic markets crashed. Supply chains disintegrated. Merchant fleets rerouted or abandoned entire sectors. Trade worlds once reliant on the Empire began forging pacts with independent factions. No one claimed Earth's involvement. They didn't have to. Rumors spread that Earth had access to something older than AI, more precise than any weapon. A philosophy of vengeance calculated through centuries of discipline. Not a fleet, not an army, an idea. Retribution without announcement, punishment without limit, conclusion without politics. One by one, Empire worlds entered lockdown. Cultural institutions restructured their teachings. History was rewritten to reduce emphasis on Terran conflict. Civil records were sanitized. Even children were taught that humanity no longer engaged in diplomacy. They issued ultimatums through consequence. In desperation, the Emperor ordered the deployment of his final defense, a core fleet of antimatter-armed dreadnoughts. Their path was clear. Earth's solar system. They never arrived. 2 weeks after departure, a single escape pod entered orbit around the Empire's capital. Inside was a fragment of one of the ships. No signs of battle, no damage consistent with known weaponry. Just one sentence etched into its hull. Return is not permitted. The fleet was presumed erased. Empire leadership began to fragment. Senior officers abandoned their posts, fearing Earth's gaze. Some fled to uncharted sectors. Others defected entirely. A few disappeared, presumed taken. The collapse wasn't dramatic. It was methodical, inevitable. The Empire hadn't lost a war. It had unraveled under the weight of a single miscalculation, that Earth had forgotten what it used to be. Earth never set foot on Empire soil. It didn't need to. It simply reminded the galaxy that even peace has its limits, and beyond that limit stood what it had locked away. The lesson was delivered not with fire, but precision. And the Empire finally understood. This wasn't vengeance. This was consequence, executed without hesitation, and never offered twice. The war didn't end with a treaty. No document was signed, no date recorded. It ended when the last scream fell silent and the last signal from the Empire's core worlds blinked out, unanswered. There was no declaration of victory. Earth never claimed it. The galaxy simply understood. When the final systems fell quiet, the Directorate issued a single classified order. The war criminals were to be returned. Not celebrated. Not thanked. Just contained. The extraction process was clinical. Remote-controlled crafts retrieved what they could. Some operatives returned willingly. Others resisted. A few couldn't be found at all. Tren disappeared into the void after transmitting a single encrypted file titled, "All That's Left." Its contents remained sealed. Valkyrie Zero was retrieved from a derelict ship on the edge of a dying star, her systems voluntarily suspended. CRE had already shut itself down, having triggered its own indefinite quarantine loop once parameters were deemed fulfilled. Each was resealed according to protocol: cryocontainment, neural dampening, psychological isolation. The vault's parameters were expanded. Additional encryption layers added. The access keys, once divided among 3 agencies, were split into 17 fragments, each assigned to a different secure vault across human-controlled space. No single entity could awaken them again without universal consensus. Section Black was closed for the second and final time. No ceremony. No marker. Just reinforced silence beneath the ice. Above, Earth remained still. Its fleets returned to their stations. Civilian traffic resumed. Reconstruction began where needed, quietly, efficiently. There were no parades. No broadcast. The Directorate released a single public statement: "The threat has passed. Peace remains our goal." Nothing more. In distant systems, the remnants of the Empire tried to reform. Regional governors clawed for power. Some rebranded. Others vanished. Those who attempted retaliation quickly changed course after their communication networks were intercepted and replaced with silent recordings of their own confidential war logs, leaked back to their citizens without a trace of origin. Whispers spread fast. Earth had no empire. It made no claims. It did not annex, colonize, or impose rule. But entire regions aligned themselves anyway, not by coercion, but by choice. Neutral worlds began adopting Earth-standard governance protocols. Education systems rewrote curriculum to reflect the events not as war, but as caution. Children were taught the date of the massacre. Not the war. Not the response. Just the event that began it all. On one independent planet, a monument was built, a single stone slab carved with the names of the slain medics. No mention of retaliation. No political insignia. The inscription read only, *, they came to heal. That was all, *. Among the old powers, Earth's silence was more unsettling than its action. Other civilizations issued statements of solidarity. Earth acknowledged none. It returned to observation, research, aid distribution, cautiously. Medical corps deployments resumed under triple-layer security, their insignias now lined with crimson, not for rank, but in mourning. In private, Earth's leaders debated whether Section Black should have been used at all. Some warned of dependency, others of moral erosion. But the debate always ended the same way. The image of burning triage tents, unarmed volunteers shot in the back, aid workers with shattered spines holding syringes instead of weapons. Some decisions live beyond ideology. Years passed. The fear didn't fade. It evolved. Empire successor states avoided border friction. Smugglers refused Terran contract. Even mercenary guilds blacklisted bounties with Earth affiliations. There were no threats, only implications. An implication proved far more effective. Cultural shifts followed. Alien entertainment industries stopped portraying Terrans as primitive or emotional. Libraries replaced speculative fiction with documentation. Students at interstellar academies began studying Terran warfare not for tactics, but for restraint. The lesson wasn't about how Earth fought. It was why it stopped. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, myths were born. Stories of a vault beneath ice holding things older than reason. Beings shaped not by hatred, but by obligation. No hunger, no ideology, just programming built from trauma and precision. Some say they still walk among the stars. That they weren't all returned. That Earth let a few remain, just in case. The Directorate denies this. But its silence is taken as confirmation. In one far-off council chamber, a question was raised. How do we ensure this never happens again? The answer came not from a diplomat, but from a refugee who had once seen a Terran field medic cry over a dying child. Don't make them bury their mercy, she said. Because if you do, they'll remember what they buried with it. No one argued. and somewhere, deep beneath the ice, 17 locks hummed quietly in the dark. Waiting.